We moved into my grandparents' house in 2016 when they decided to downsize. They had built the place in the early 9 South, and it sits on 5 acres out on the outskirts of a small southern town. Woods and open fields stretch around I-10. A slow, muddy river winds past our southern fence line on 2 sides. Our property touches our only neighbor's land, an odd, crooked patch of acreage with ahus that felt like it was sinking into the ground. That house was old. The original farmhouse had been built in the 1920s, and over the years it had been added onto in all the wrong ways. Like Simeon stapled extra rooms together without a plan. The siding was discolored and soft-looking. Every time you glanced at it, it just looked wet, even on dry days. The yard was a nightmare. Overgrown bushes, tangled with vines, broken fountains, surrounded by weeds, no missing heads, and old trash that looked like it had been there for years. Grocery bags flapped in the tree branches. A rusted lawnmower sat in the middle of the grass like it had died mid-job and was never moved. It was the place that made you want to hold your breath when you walked by. At the time, the house was home to 2 elderly sisters, Violet and Agnes, and 3 kids. Violet was the quieter of the 2. Alvis, on the porch in a faded green rocking chair, just watching the Trassains, was sharper and more active, but still moved like her bones. Hurt. Both women were in their 70s at least. Kids were their grandchildren. The boy Liam was my age, and in my grade. The other 2 were girls named Allison and Kelsey. They were the same age as my younger sister. Liam was weird. I didn't like Hyman. I didn't want to hang out with him, but we were in the same class, so we got lumped together a lot. He took that as permission to just show up at my house whenever he wanted. No knocking or texting. I'd be playing a game in my room and turn around and he'd just be there on time. I looked out my window and saw him doing cannonballs in our pool, and all the time he walked straight into the kitchen, opened our fridge, and started eating a slice of leftover pizza with his hands, like it was no big deal when hung out. He wasn't fun. He was obsessed with anime, like really obsessed, but I didn't watch any, so I had no idea what he was talking about. He'd say weird lines in Japanese and get mad when I didn't laugh. Sometimes he'd get this look in his eyes like he was imagining something violent. One time he chased me with a pair of sharp garden shears, winging them around and laughing like it was a game. Another time we were on an old wooden bridge that crosses the creek near the back of our properties, and I swear he tried to push me in. He claimed it was a joke, but the way he smiled after, I knew he meant it. The twins, very different, quiet and almost invisible. Their clothes were always dirty, and they had speech impediments that made it hard to understand them. It was obvious nobody at home was helping them. Their voice were garbled, like they were still toddlers. Even though they were 70, flinched easily, and they always looked hungry. Their dad was in and out of jail, so he wasn't around, and that brings us to the mom, Teresa. The first time I saw her, she was trying to hook a hose up to the spigot at the edge of their property right near our side yard. Was tall, way taller than anyone else sane. Her family and heavy set, with long thick curly black hair and glasses that looked like they belonged in the 8S shoes. Different put together in a way that the rest of the family wasn't. Her clothes were clean, her hair was always styled too. She smiled at me like she'd been waiting for me to come over. She asked me if I could help her with the facet and said it was stuck. I walked over and turned it, and it moved easily. She gasped and clapped her hands, told May was so strong and how lucky she was. I came over. I felt proud. She made me feel like I was something special. Then she said, "Did you know you have a third eye?" I blinked. What? She smiled wider and said, "We all have one, not a physical eye, but a spiritual one." She said it lets you see the truth, whatever that meant. Before I could ask anything, she started walking back toward her house and told me to come with her, so I did. Inside of their house hit me like a wave of rot. It smelled like spoiled food, and something worse. I couldn't lace. Trash was everywhere. Garbage bags, open rotting food on plates, stained furniture, even dirty diapers were stuffed behind the couch. I tried to leave, but Teresa grabbed my wrist and handled me upstairs. Her room was nothing like the rest of the house. It was pristine, with pink wallpaper, clean carpet, shelves full of porcelain dolls, and very ornate old furniture. The air smelled like rosewater and old perfume. It was like I stepped into a different building. She gestured for me to sit on a little cushioned stool in the corner. Anthon walked over to her vanity and opened a drawer. She pulled out a silver tray with a black candle, a crystal, and a thick leather-bound book. The second I saw the pentagram on the cover, my parents are Catholic, I knew what that symbol meant, and suddenly he started seeing it everywhere on their welly. box on the mirror's frame, and peeking out from under the corner of Therog, on the floor etched into the wood. I jumped up. Sorry, my mom wants me home. Bae didn't wait for a response. I ran in 2019. Agnes had a heart attack and died inside the house. I heard she collapsed in the living room in front of all thickets. I went to the funeral. It was in this rundown Baptist church on the edge of town. The family was stone-faced, like they didn't know how to react, except for her own woman, who I'd never seen before. She sat in the second pew, sobbing so loud, I echoed. Nobody acknowledged her. That same year Liam disappeared. The story was Thath tried to kill one of the twins and was sent to a psychiatric facility. He never got the full details, but my prince sat my sister and I down that night and said in no uncertain terms, "Wooer, never to go near that family again. Remember their faces grim and serious." When it all clicked, all the little things I hadn't understood, through stuff, the fear, eventually the rest off. The family moved away. They left Violet behind, just an old frail woman living alone in that collapsing house. Passed away in 2020 alone. In that house her estate went up for auction. A few months later one of my old elementary school teachers, Mrs. S, bought it with her husband. They tore down most of the structure but kept the original 1920 section, the same part where Teresa's room had been. Mrs. S invited Yusufa to see the renovations. It was beautiful open floor plan, all new appliances and fresh paint. She showed Yusuf upstairs, and that's when my skin started crawling. We were in her room, and I could feel it, even though the floors were. Now I knew the pentagram was still there, like the floor. Remembered I felt nauseous, like something was watching me from the walls. I told Mrs. C had a headache and had to go. She was disappointed I was supposed to stay further. I avoided the house. After that until last year Mrs. S asked me to dog sit while they went out of town for a week. I said yes. I figured it was just a Joe Bessie money every night. I'd ring the doorbell and they'd buzz me in through throttlock. Their dogs, the Shih Tzu, Muffin and a snorting little pug named Henry, would greet me, tails wagging. The first 4 nights were quite peaceful. Even I'd feed the dogs, play with them a bit, turn on the porch light and lock up. But on the last night I was about to leave when Henry started barking at the staircase. He planted his little legs and just barked over and over. Muffin backed away, whimpering. There was nothing there. And then thump it came from upstairs. Another thump, louder. This time I didn't stay to investigate. I ran front door, slammed it behind me, and locked it the whole walk home. I couldn't shake the feeling something had followed now. It's 2025. We hadn't heard a word about the family in over 4 years. That is, until recently. A girl from school told me she saw Teresa at a farmer's market in a nearby town. Apparently she started some kind of religious group, calls herself a truth seer. They live in a mobile home community far out in Thuwoods. Flyers have started popping up on bulletin boards and telephone poles. I don't trust it. I don't trust her. I think Teresa is truly evil. I mean, she neglected her kids. She left her mother in that house to rot, and I think she brought something into it, something dark, something that stayed behind. I still have nightmares of her and Liam. They stand at the foot of my bed, staring at him, not speaking at all, and every time he passes by that house, even now, I get chills. Good parts, such as the paint, the furniture, it's all surface level. That place remembers, and I don't think I'd ever let go of what happened. Music there. My name is Keegan. I reside in Michigan with my parents. High school was a decent timeline for me, as I had go tend to meet various new people during my time there. Obviously I also had some people I tended to hang out with outside of school. The only time I really hung out with them was at places like my local community center, where we would work out and play basketball back in freshman year. It was getting close, tough, end of the year, and I was excited. Summer break to be coming. I would best starting driver's training and even start doing a side job to at least begin making money. So I didn't have Theftistas start. I had this one friend named Clayton. I would usually hang out with him at least once a week. He was a grade lower than me. His final year of junior high we were to some extent good friends, and my dad and I even took him to a Detroit Pistons BASKET game at Tone Point. He was quite a big basketball fan, so he was more than eager to attend first game. Despite all the fun activities in the past, it was until it started becoming more busy that he was somewhat beginning to change. He would surely get a bit sad or angry because he am not free on a specific day. He wastes kind of person to have some pretty intense anger issues when he got pissed off enough. I remember this one day when I told him I wasn't free again and that tie would be